this month, January 27th, is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. The day to commemorate the millions of victims of the Holocaust and to reaffirm the commitment to combat anti-Semitism, racism, and intolerance. This year's remembrance carries even more weight following the October 7th attack in Israel. Audrey Birnbaum is the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, Wolf Schwersenz. Birnbaum's debut book is American Wolf, From Nazi Refugee to American Spy. It tells the heart-stopping true story of her dad's escape from Hitler's Germany. Birnbaum using her father's own childhood notes to document the triumph of the human spirit. Thursday, Audrey will discuss her book and her father's incredible story at the Reagan Presidential Library. But first, she joins us live with more. Thanks so much for being with us. Congrats on the book.
And thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
So it has been 6 years today since your dad passed, and our condolences to you on that. This book tells his amazing story. Talk about his early life and his escape from the Holocaust.
Yes. Well, my father grew up in Berlin, and he was born in 1930, so he kind of came of age just as Hitler was rising in power. And his family stayed in, I would say they stayed in Germany just a little bit too long for a variety of reasons. And they started, when they realized things were getting rough, they applied for visas to the U.S., and they hit delay after delay after delay. And it was already 1941, and the war was in full bloom, and they were being bombed left and right, and they kept thinking, oh, please, when someone bombed the Germans, and they realized they were the Germans too. And so they were having this like confused identity in terms of just figuring out how do we be saved, because they knew Hitler had to be destroyed, but they realized they might be destroyed in the process. And eventually they were able to get visas, and they tried to make their way. They had to find a country that was neutral to find a ship to get out of the continental United States, but there were almost no neutral countries. Everybody was involved in the war. And by the time they found their way to a ship, their visas to the U.S. had expired. And I don't want to give too much away, but obviously it was like a race against time, and every country, the countries were toppling, and each one was involved in the war, and they had to figure out how to sneak aboard a ship without a valid visa to the U.S., which was basically not legal and impossible. And that's just the beginning of the saga.
and one thing that makes this story different than most is he eventually makes his way to America and then becomes a spy for the U.S. in the Cold War.
That is right. So he really was proud to be an American, and he wanted so hard to fit in. And of course, that really never happens as an immigrant. But he was proud to wear a uniform, and he had great linguistic skills because he spoke German fluently. And the U.S. it had just finished its war with the Korean War, and they realized that they were way behind the Russians in technology, and my father was stationed in East Germany, in Potsdam, and he used his German skills there to basically fight the Cold War for a couple of years, and he enjoyed being James Bond-like. It was his coolest moment probably in his life. And so he had great spy experiences there, but most importantly, he went back to the Germany that he had such mixed feelings about. You know, it was his home, so he was a little homesick, but also it was the country that had thrown him out. And when he came to this country, he was even called a Nazi because he was German. So, which, you know, the irony there is, I think, right, you know, speaks for itself. So he always had this confusion about, you know, he was rejected everywhere, and I think there was a lot of self-rejection. So this book is also about him accepting himself for what he was, which was, you know, a little bit of everything. He was German, he was American, he was Jewish, and, you know, a hybrid of all of those things.
Yeah, and he also was a great writer who wrote hundreds of pages of notes, which you used as source material for this as well. You'll be speaking at the Reagan Library on Thursday. We've profiled several times their Auschwitz Not Long Ago, Not Far Away exhibit, which is really powerful. And we've gone there also within the context of what happened on October 7th, which has made so much of this less of a history lesson and more sort of a reality for a lot of folks now. If you can, real briefly in like 30 seconds, talk about the state of where the world is at and how this book comes at this time.
Yeah, I had no idea. I did this as an homage to my father, and also just because I think, stories need to be told continuously without knowing our history. Of course, it's bound to repeat itself. But I also feel that it's not just history. You have to tell personal stories, right? And make it come to life for people. I mean, I've gotten feedback that people are very moved by the story. Right, you don't want to just hear dates. You don't want to just hear that 6 million Jewish people were killed in the Holocaust. You want to hear what somebody experienced so you could feel personally moved by it. And of course, the rising anti-Semitism today is very frightening. And for those of us who have personal experiences with it, it's hard for other people sometimes to understand that feeling of, okay, what if we have to pack our bags and leave again? It's something that I grew up with that I hate to say it's really ingrained in my DNA, the sense of like, are your bags packed? Do you have your passport ready? Because you just never know, when you might have to go and be ejected from your own country. I mean, that's what my father lived with. And, I'm sorry to say that there's always a little bit in us that feels that way.
And I mispronounced your dad's name, so pronounce it correctly.
Sorry, I grew up with that. I married out of it, but it's Schwersenz.
There we go. Okay.
Schwersenz, and you did great.
American Wolf, From Nazi Refugee to American Spy, is available now online and wherever books are sold. Thanks so much, Audrey, for telling his story, and good luck at the Reagan Library this week.
Thank you so much. You can find my website at audreybirnbaumauthor.com. All the information is there.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Okay.